Okay, what's going on? Frank Nitty here with my final video on the 2019 Green Bay Packers. I didn't want my disappointment in that loss to 49ers to be my final take about this season, so I'm making this one to give my overall grade of the season, talk about some positive, negatives, and the off-season things I feel the team should do to improve going forward. So sit back, relax. It's going to be a long video, so here we go. I say probably one of the big positive things about this season was staying healthy. The Packers have been a team for years that has been bombarded by injuries on both sides of football. In the 2019 to the 2010 season, we had so many guys on IR that season. It made it even more special. That team found a way to win it all that year. But yeah, this season we stayed relatively healthy, and we didn't lose that really any key guys, which was phenomenal. And hopefully we're close to that again next season, and we go into next season virtually healthy for the most part and don't lose anybody that has a significant impact on the football team. But yeah, I say okay. So the next biggest positive thing this season was overall going 13-3. However you want to spin it, the Packers weren't expected to win even 8 games. With a new head coach, staff, and the changes made to the football team from the past two off seasons, like getting rid of McCarthy, Ted Thompson, Dom Capers, and bringing in Matt LaFleur, Brian, and Mike Patton. So we weren't supposed to go as far as we did. The overall season was a big surprise, I think, to most who made their predictions. And I think the media and a lot of fans in general had the Packers probably winning only maybe like 6, 7 games at best. So it's just the overall unpredictability about the NFL. And the NFL at the end of the day is a league that is very hard to predict, especially on the NFC side of things more often than not. There's always a surprise team every season. You have teams, you have some teams that are good one season, then they suck the next, or you have some teams who are always consistently bad, but then maybe they'll have that one good year. And next season, 2020, will really be no different. There's going to be a surprise team again next season, whether it's on the NFC side or the AFC side. And hopefully the Packers can just continue building on the overall success they made from this season and again make it back into the playoffs next year. I don't want to see us falling off. Do I expect the same results from this year as far as how many wins? I doubt it. But I still think the Packers next season have the opportunity to still win about 10 games. The Packers' 13-team record, unfortunately, like I said, was impressive. But then you look at the teams they beat and the ones they lost to, you quickly saw how deceiving it all was. The Packers never looked like a Super Bowl contending team all season long. I know there are some Packers fans who think differently, and that's fine. But from my own eyes, I can see what happened in San Francisco. I can see what was going to happen in San Francisco from a mile away, way before we got to that point. And it was the same thing against the LA Chargers, who aren't even as good as the 49ers. But one of the biggest flaws to this football team all this year was winning and losing ugly. The team was 9-1 in one-score games in the regular season and 1-0 in the postseason, and many of those victories came down to the wire. In fact, the only multi-score wins came against bad football teams like the Broncos, the Raiders, and the Giants, all of whom missed the playoffs, and against the Vikings team that was in the playoffs, but we beat them without their best offensive weapon. Now, you can hold that a lot against the Packers, but we did beat them when when Dalvin Cook was playing in Green Bay. Because, we had that home field advantage, but it definitely would have been a much different scenario had he been playing when we went inside in Minnesota. But at least those wins were still wins in a league where nothing is easy to come by. The Packers swept the NFC North for the first time since I believe 2011 when we went 15-1. It felt good to not only improve upon two horrible seasons ago, last 2 years, but to get back to winning the NFC North, defeating the Lions, who swept us the last 2 seasons, the Vikings in their new stadium, and the Bears, who we always dominate. But even so, against NFC North opponents, those wins were just ugly. We barely escaped the Vikings in Green Bay. The Bears had plenty of chances to come back and win in Chicago. The Lions lost off of poor officiating. The Redskins, hell, if they had played a quarterback, if they had just had a better quarterback, they could have beaten us. So they were just, to the Packers all season long, were just winning a lot of games ugly and losing games even uglier. In week 4, the Packers' red zone offense fell apart when they had chances to put points on the board against the Eagles, and losses to the Chargers and the 49ers twice the team went on the road to California and got manhandled. Whether due to just a lack of preparation, poor game planning, lack of focus, or whether the fuck the other reasons, I don't know. All I know is all I know is we won ugly, and just the losses were even uglier than that, and just got dominated against better football teams. This team still won 14 games and returned to playoff success after losing 2 seasons, but it was also exhausting to watch as a fan. Too often, the Packers had to hold on against an inferior football team that made a late charge and needed a comeback of their own against getting behind with a poor first half ever. This is why so many of myself felt like they were one of the worst 13-win football teams ever, because struggling to finish off inferior teams and getting smacked around by teams who could run the football and play defense was the biggest problems and biggest stories of this season. So like you look, so that's why overall I give the season about a C in terms of, yeah, this was definitely a big improvement, because with a new head coach, new scheme, new personnel, still winning 13 games in the NFL is a wonderful effort, and we made it over to the NFC Championship in Matt LaFleur's first year. So that's still a lot to be proud of, even if this team overall never played like a 13-win team. So let's go ahead and move on to Aaron Rodgers. A lot of the media and people say that Aaron Rodgers isn't elite anymore. He's on a decline and all that stuff. And while I will agree to that to an extent, but it's not like he's just completely hit the wall. Aaron Rodgers is still a really good quarterback. Okay, plenty of teams will love to have Rodgers even at his age now as their quarterback instead of guys like Mitch or Ryan Tannehill. Okay, so knock it off. So it's not like Rodgers is just completely hit the wall and all his talent is gone, because it's not. Far from it. Aaron Rodgers is older, yes. He can't really depend on his athleticism and maneuvering around the pocket, buying an extra 5 to 10 seconds till somebody comes open and back to the football. That was always one of his biggest strengths when he was younger, was that sandlot football you see with guys now like Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, who he's compared to a lot. So Rodgers is becoming more of a sitting duck in the pocket. Yes, not being able to escape pressure and make amazing throws on the move as he was able to easily do in his prime. So age is just catching up with him, along with injuries he suffered over years. That has a toll on you. That definitely has a toll on your body as you get older. And right now, just the narrative with Rodgers should be, in my opinion, is that he can no longer carry to average talent. And what I mean by that is, for the entire Aaron Rodgers era, this team has been built around the quarterback with the understanding that having an average supporting cast would make them Super Bowl contenders, and that is where that, in my opinion, is where the organization has failed Aaron Rodgers in his career as our starting quarterback. The Packers never truly went out of their way to put elite talent around Rodgers, even when he was playing at his absolute best. And I remember those playoff games that we lost, a lot of those playoff games that we lost in the mid 2010s, and I was constantly saying that we needed to put better talent on this football team around Rodgers while he's still playing at a top level. And I said that so many goddamn times. I don't know if anybody is listening to this now was subscribed to me then, but this is stuff that I was saying all the way back then. I was constantly preaching and begging the Packers pretty much to bring in better talent on both sides of the football for Rodgers, and they never did. They never did. And now that it's gotten to the point, it's just gotten to the point where you just see the impact it's had on him and his career. Because, like I said, even when he was playing at his absolute best, those teams that we had like in the mid 2010s was very lackluster in talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But Rodgers' great play and his great play and abilities always covered up those weaknesses until we got into the postseason. So while Rodgers may be on decline, it still doesn't change the fact that even when he was playing his best ball, the team didn't build a better supporting cast around to win another championship. This organization rolled his back into the ground. And now that he can no longer carry the entire load then, as he could then, it's now all of a sudden time to go after him. And it's not now that he can no longer carry us the way he could before in the past. Now everybody just wants to go after him, start calling him overrated, and blah 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 blah. After y'all failed him so many times, and it just makes me sick. It absolutely makes me sick when you look at this organization, how much they failed this man, and giving him better time to work with over his career. And now that he's on the back half of his career, and he's winding down. You got the media and everybody else who want to scream overrated and ha 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 and all that stuff, and it just makes me sick, man. I'm not saying Aaron Rodgers as a whole doesn't have his problems now. Okay, that's definitely not what I'm saying. This season in particular, he again demonstrated one of his biggest flaws as a quarterback, and that's just holding on to the football for way too fucking long. Rodgers still does that a lot. Even when he's under intense pressure, he doesn't get rid of the football quick enough. And the next thing you know, he's sacked, or even worse, fumbles and turns the football over, which he does a lot. Rodgers is one of the worst quarterbacks ever taking the football under pressure. And I've said that so many goddamn times. Okay, and you can also say his field of vision has to come into question as well, because the narrative is that nobody is coming open to throw the football to. And that's only half true. The thing is, if you do a lot of film study and really go back and watch plays where he's holding on to the ball longer than needed, guys are coming open. I can't tell you guys how many times I've watched Geronimo Allison come open in the middle of the field, or when he's running a route up the seam and Aaron just completely misses him. Go watch the Chargers game, for example, where because he was locked on Devontae too much, he was missing guys coming open on a lot of times on third downs, where they would have easily picked it up had he just looked their way and thrown him the football. So his field of vision is a big question mark and a problem I've had for a while. And I feel like that should be one of the biggest narratives about Aaron Rodgers and his quarterback play. Because as a quarterback, you need to be surveying the entire field. You can't be just locked on one guy. And I understand why, because Devontae is our best wide receiver by a mile. But sometimes a guy like Rodgers does not like to just take what the defense is giving him, and it gets him in trouble way too much. So if you want to talk about problems with Aaron Rodgers, those are probably the two biggest problems with Rodgers' play. His field of vision, not trusting in his talent, his wide receivers, not talent, he's trusting his other options enough, and just holding on to that football for way too goddamn long, man. And unfortunately, I really don't ever see that changing. But that's enough. That's enough for Aaron Rodgers, though. Overall, he still had a good season, okay? And he's still a fucking good quarterback, all right? Maybe not by his standards, but he's still good. At the end of the day, when you look at what position Green Bay needs to get better talent at, quarterback is on the far bottom of that list. Okay, all right. There are still teams who have a shit ton of talent on their team, but don't have the right quarterback to lead them into the playoffs. So that argument can definitely go both ways. But moving on to some other positive things, because while I was happy that the GM was making moves during the off season, I still feel like he had his slip ups. But the best thing about that, the biggest positive about that, is he's willing to be aggressive, unlike a certain somebody who I'm not going to mention. Anyway, the next positive thing was Aaron Jones for sure. Come on, man. I mean, it was great to see the Packers finally completely commit to him as their number one running back, their number one option at that position, and he had a great year. He had a great year, even if the team I still felt like wasn't truly 100% committed to him enough. Because, like I said, with the way Rodgers is playing and with just the not enough talent at wide receiver, I just felt like the team should have been more catered around Aaron Jones and getting him involved as much as possible. And like I said, when he was, that was always leading to our biggest success on offense. All you gotta do is go back and watch those games. And go watch the games mainly where the Packers won, and see who was the biggest contributor to that. It was Aaron Jones. And his ability to, and again his explosive ability coming through the hole when he has room to run, his way to maneuver and get inside the end zone when we're in the red zone. The guy is a weapon, and he's a weapon that the Packers need to continually find ways to use as much as possible, because when he's got it going and he's making plays, it's when our offense is at its most dangerous. And that was proven all season long. But when he doesn't, You see the results, and you see how we're on the losing side. Devontae Adams was obviously another positive, being our number one wide receiver, being one of the best receivers in the league, which is not an argument that needs to be discussed. Okay, Tays had another good year, even if he was injured for a month, but when he came back, he didn't miss a beat, and he still almost managed to put up 1,000 yards. So Devontae Adams is definitely not a guy that we need to worry about, and I'm happy that he got voted as an alternate into the Pro Bowl, even though I feel like that should have been Aaron Jones instead, because Devontae, still, again, he did miss a month with his turf toe injury, and I really feel like Aaron Jones should have took that other snub Pro Bowl spot, and it's just an absolute travesty that he didn't get voted into the Pro Bowl, in my opinion. He should have been named as a Pro Bowl alternate, in my opinion. All right, him not being voted to Pro Bowl is a fucking absolute travesty. He had a great year. Not saying Devontae didn't. He had a good year. Not great. He had a good year. But I feel like Jones definitely was the one of the two who should have been named as an alternate to the Pro Bowl, man. Now, excuse me, before that, and I say probably the biggest positive this season, one of the big, and also another biggest, was Bo Preston and Zadarius Smith. Come on, man. The signing of those two just brought leadership to the locker room that the Packers have not had in so long and so many goddamn years. And it was special to watch this team throughout the entire season being led by those guys, and just how well they both played throughout the season, man. Zadarius Smith, another guy who got completely snubbed from the Pro Bowl. He was named finally as an alternate, but should have been voted automatically, man. The guy had a terrific year. Had so much pressure on quarterbacks. Got those sacks, man. The guy was a beast. He played out of his mind, and he was well worth the money and the aggressiveness to go after both him and Preston and bring those guys to Green Bay. And I just hope that they continue to play at that level the next coming seasons, man. I'm excited to watch those guys play again next following season for sure. So signing the Smith brothers was a big positive for the Packers, and just bringing out again, like I said, much needed leadership to this freaking locker room. Because, in my opinion, you know what? I'm not even gonna get to that. Now. I'm gonna just leave that alone. But yeah, now that I got most of that out of the way, I'm gonna now move on and talk about what I feel like the Packers need to do to improve this coming off season. So let's go ahead and talk about what I feel like the Packers need to do to improve this off season. All right, so like I said, the Packers were exposed as just complete frauds that most people knew they were, but they didn't want to admit to. 13 wins is good, but really, it was a lie. Like I said, with yet another in-region playoff loss behind them, here is what I think the Packers have to do if they want to get back to the playoffs or even get back to the Super Bowl for that matter. Before making this video, I had fire Mike Pettin at the top of the list, but unfortunately, Matt LaFleur is sticking with Mike Pettin as defensive coordinator, and it's a big headache to me and tons of other Packers fans, I'm sure. It was a great day for us all when Dom Capers was finally fired. But once the team hired Mike Pettin, yet another bad year on the defense was summed up as a personal issue. Now in the second year of his defensive system, despite adding the Smith brothers on the defensive side of the ball, it still wasn't enough. Just like clockwork, the Packers defense folded like a cheap tent in the playoff game. Aaron Rodgers is 10-8 as a starter in the playoffs. They've given up 36 points per game in those losses. And and it's like as much talk that was going around about this Packers team being improved defensively in 2019, even with Rodgers after beating the Bears stupidly gets on the damn interview talking about we got a defense now. I'm just like, who the hell are you fooling? And you're saying this after only one football game? I could see that this defense wasn't gonna be that great just in the preseason. But just because we go up against terrible quarterbacks like Mitch Trubisky, that's enough to say that we got a defense? No, sir. In reality, it wasn't it just let's just be real here. It wasn't that much better than any of John Capers' units in all the years that he was there. He was here. Let's just be real. The only thing that was different about this Pettin's group compared to Capers was just flashier and had bigger names. That was it. It was just a flashier defense that had bigger names that excited us as fans with decent showings against terrible quarterbacks. Going up against Mitch Trubisky and Kirk Cousins twice a year will make any defense look better than they are. And all year long, I was saying these guys aren't as good as you think. They got smacked around by teams that could run the football. The Lions, Chargers, 49ers, Eagles, Redskins even all ran all over us. Okay? The run defense was absolute shit all season long, and Mike Pettin never did anything to help fix those issues. Sure, some of it is completely out of his hands with the talent he has to work with, but you should listen. But if you listen to that clown talk and you heard the things that he was saying all season long about how he was more focused on stopping the pass than a run, and I'm like, you should want to stop both phases, you fucking dumbass. He was perfectly okay with teams running down our throats as long as we quote unquote stop the pass attack, which we weren't really doing a great job with that either. And look what happens. We go into San Francisco again, and it finally cost us. So I wanted Mike Pettin gone, man. I wanted him gone. Firing Mike Pettin was at the top of my list, but unfortunately, Matt LaFleur is sticky with him, and I just feel like it's just gonna be the same shit going into next season's 2020 season. So, despite the fact that I just wanted him gone, man, this defensive scheme is just too predictable, and it's easy for experienced quarterbacks to pick it apart. Yes, they would have had to start over and learn a new scheme, but it's better than bringing this idiot back. But if they're gonna do that, the Packers can just live and die on their own sword. I expect nothing different with him still at the front, calling this defense next year. Okay, so the next thing I say the Packers need to do is just have a complete overall and middle linebacker. As as of the end, with the NFC Championship game now behind us, Blake Martinez is no longer on the contract. The Packers have, and it's just the Packers have ignored the middle linebacker position as if it was a crippling, as if it wasn't a crippling deficiency year after year, and a completely overwhelmed defense. Okay, Blake Martinez is the king of making tackles 8 yards down the field, and hardly ever makes game-changing plays. All right, and it's like I like Blake, okay, but really the Packers coaches over the years have really raved about his ability to control the unit and be the main signal caller. And I'm just thinking in my head, like, you know what? Just get somebody else to repeat verbatim what your defensive coordinator just shouted into your ear. Okay? The Packers have a little bit over 30 million in cap space, so they can create even more space with several necessary cuts. All right, in my opinion, the minute free agency opens, they should be at the shopping. They should be out shopping for another guy because Blake Martinez isn't it. He's an average inside linebacker, and when you're playing the 3-4 defensive scheme, you need quick, athletic linebackers who can get up the field, get up to the line of scrimmage in a hurry, help stop the run, and go out in coverage. Blake Martinez lacks all those things. He's horrible in coverage, as I've said tons of times. He's not fast or very athletic, which is why he struggles clogging up the middle and making game-changing plays and tackles in most games. Okay? Now, I hate to go him like that, but he's not the answer at inside linebacker. And just to defend Mike Pettin, like I said earlier, is not exactly it's not exactly he had that much talent to work with as far as linebackers, as far as inside linebackers are concerned, which just plays a part in one of the biggest reasons why we were constantly being run over because Mike Pettin had to play more defensive backs than linebackers on the field. But like I said, Blake just like I said, Blake is like I said, he's horrible in coverage, man, and along with those other problems I mentioned. And if not in free agency, then the draft just needs to be it. Then Brian should be looking in the draft to be looking for his replacement. All right, trade him to another team for a draft pick, or if he's willing to take a pay cut, or excuse me, if you re-sign him to a small contract. There's no reason the Packers should be paying Blake Martinez a lot of money because he's not working. Either way, he just can't be the guy moving forward. We need better talent inside. Period. Period. Okay, next up is a no-brainer. Find another wide receiver. Okay, Come on, man. There has been a lot of justified praise shown to Brian Gustin through his 2 years in charge of the Packers, but not trading for a wide receiver at the deadline was absolutely unacceptable. And anybody who watches my videos knows I was furious off of that because he felt after the game against the below average Raiders was enough to convince him not to make a move. As if he wasn't watching the games prior or after that. Even though I said what I said about Gmo earlier, even when he would get targets, he would have some drops, not pick up many yards after the catch, or even worse, fumble it. Marquez Valdez-Scantling came into the year as the team's number 2 target. That was bad enough. He caught 9 passes starting from November to the end of the season. He had 26 of the entire season. 26 receptions, and he was supposed to be our number 2 option. Well, I wouldn't say he was supposed to be. He just unfortunately fell into that position because he really wasn't ready yet. And now, am I really just throwing a towel on Marquez? No, because who knows? He might pick it up in his 3rd year. You never know. It took Devontae a while to get it going. But when he did, you see what he turned into. So I'm not going to throw in a towel just yet on him. But we can't come in the next year with him as one of our top priorities at wide receiver. We just can't. So it was very unfortunate that the GM didn't make any moves at wide receiver before the trade deadline. Notably, because there nobly were several impactful receivers available on the block come deadline time. No one knows what. Granted, nobody really knows what goes on in the NFL front offices, and who knows? There may have been some discussions with other teams about adding wide receiver, and maybe they just simply couldn't agree on a deal. But the fact of the matter is this: the Packers knowingly let the receiving corps completely dry up and went to war with the NFL's best defense with Devontae Adams and a bunch of practice squad level wide receivers. Green Bay also made that choice despite having 3 extra draft picks already in their stable going into the draft. Wasting our first draft pick last year on Rashawn Gary was a mistake. And it's not a mistake on as far as his talent goes. It's just a mistake as far as it should have went to the offensive side of the ball, like drafting a wide receiver or even a tight end for that matter. Especially after already signing the Smith brothers. But San Francisco, on the other hand, was already down draft picks from earlier moves and still traded to get Emmanuel Sanders. Okay, and you see what a big impact he's had on that football team. And you still got Dez Bryant out there. Guys like Sanders, AJ Green, but I don't want those guys, man. So, but this coming draft is looking really deep as far as wide receiver go. And if the Packers don't draft a wide receiver, they're asking for trouble again. It's gonna look exactly as it did this year. The Packers need to draft a wide receiver, need to get some impactful guys at that position immediately. Immediately. It's not even something it's something where you're just gonna sit here and wait for those guys to develop. No, they need to get some good, young, impactful guys immediately at that position. They cannot afford to come back into next season with this receiving group. They can't. We need better weapons on offense. Period. Cut and dry. Which leads me to my the next thing. Add a tight end. Come on, man. Jimmy Graham was a flop. The Packers have had him on the contract for one more season, but I'm sure they'll be looking to let him go. It's time to move on. Jimmy Graham's prime is way behind him, and he shouldn't be a starting tight end on any football team. Robert Tonyan is also a free agent, leaving just only Jay Storenberger as the only tight end on the roster heading into next year. And I'm sure Marcedes Lewis might end up retiring. We'll see. I'll have to ask my friend Justin what the tight end position is looking like next draft, but it certainly isn't looking as deep as the wide receivers. Okay, Green Bay needs to again turn to free agency, all right? Continue being as aggressive as Brian has been, even with the slip-ups I mentioned. All right, Graham turned out to be just an expensive Richard Rodgers during his time with the Packers. Adding a tight end who can make catches in traffic and successfully block a defender in the run game will make Packers fans ecstatic and will so help open up the passing game for Aaron Rodgers the way that he hasn't had since Jermichael Finley. Because again, people like to keep on talking about how Rodgers is declining and he doesn't have anymore apparently. But then you stop and you just look at who the fuck he's throwing the ball to. Like Bill Belichick and the Patriots, they're not stupid. Look how they go out of their way every season to give Tom Brady guys to throw the ball to. And this year they weren't able to do it, and you saw the results. And that's why you got now guys calling out Tom Brady saying he's done and he's washed. Come on, man. If Tom Brady still had those weapons in offense, you wouldn't think he wouldn't still be playing at a good level, getting the ball to those guys. Even though yes, he is. Oh, he's old. Come on, bro. It's the same thing with Rodgers right now. Okay, he doesn't have much talent to throw the football to other than number 17. So the point is, they need to get younger and give guys like Stormberger more opportunities. I expect him to be more involved, much more involved next season. And the team should also strongly consider bringing back Tonya, in my opinion, who has shown some micro flashes of ability as a receiver, and use him more in the passing game. Now, this one might be a little more controversial. This one really might be a little more controversial, but I would say divorce from the defensive tackles. All right. I know Kenny Clark just got named to the Pro Bowl as an alternate. I know that. But I still think Kenny Clark is just a little bit overrated by many. All right, he definitely has something here in Green Bay, despite being despite the fact that he gets completely wiped away by better offensive lines many weeks, and I even called Kenny Clark out in the middle of the season because I felt like he just wasn't playing to his potential and his level. He disappeared a lot this season. Okay, don't get it twisted. Kenny Clark disappeared a lot this season, man. And yet people still continue to hold him as a dominant player. And I'm just like, what are you looking at? I'm not saying he doesn't have talent. That's far from it. I'm not saying that. But people talk about Kenny Clark like he's fucking Aaron Donalds. We talk about how poor the run defense is, and it all starts right there in the middle. In my opinion, Kenny Clark hasn't done enough to help in that department and just gets outclassed and dominated against better offensive lines and run blocking. Right, the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Niners, Chargers, even the Lions all outclass the Packers' run defense. And as bad as the linebackers are, it starts with Kenny Clark. I don't know if anybody's listening to this and subscribed to my Twitter, but Dean Lowry was a guy we never should have fucking re-signed. Right, but yet the Packers re-signed him, and what did you know it? He conventionally had a terrible year after signing that contract extension. That's not to say a guy like, now again, to go back to Kenny Clark, I'm not saying that the guy isn't talented, but if I'm the Packers, I would maybe try to look and trade Kenny Clark. He's got talent, but he's not Aaron Donald, like I said. I will be open to trading Kenny Clark for a high draft pick, or if they do re-sign him, go ahead and re-sign him as long as he is not looking to hold out because he's not worth all that. Now, like I said, the good thing, like I said, it's a very controversial thing, and it won't be like a complete bummer to keep Kenny Clark around. But I still feel like we still need to there's still an effort that needs to be there to get better at inside. Just completely. That entire defensive line needs an overhaul. Inside defensive tackle and defensive end. Alright, so moving on. Okay. Next, and here we go again, man. Draft multiple cornerbacks. I know. I know we've been drafting corners for the last few seasons. And this can maybe wait until late. And this honestly can wait till late in the draft. I like Jair Alexander, but he doesn't haul in many interceptions. But to be fair to him, he isn't throwing that too often. But he can be beaten downfield. Kevin King, oh my gosh, he's garbage. Alright, there's just no way around it. And I don't know how many times I've had to repeat that this season. He isn't good enough to be a starter. And you watch how teams constantly picked on him all season long. That guy has no business being one of your main cornerbacks on the field and should either be cut or moved to slot at best. But like I said, late round cornerbacks should be added to the position to get deeper and to prepare for when Green Bay hopefully lets that bum King leave in free agency. Right? Because Green Bay just cannot keep somebody like Kevin King just running around on that field running around covering good wide receivers on that field every week, just because they don't have enough anyone else to play on that boundary. They need to get deeper and more diverse in the secondary. Jamal Williams, in my opinion, he shouldn't be brought back either. He surprised people with his longevity over the last 2 seasons, but he's too old to play that position with any shred of reliability. So unfortunately, we're still at that point where we have to be looking for some cornerbacks in the draft. But I would hope the Packers wait until much later in the draft to start looking for some more guys. Because as much as we do need some diversity and some more talented guys at cornerback, the other things I've said still are more important, especially at linebacker, defensive tackle, and offensive side of the football. But still, it doesn't change the fact that we got to invest once again into corners this offseason. And the Packers are just a broken record trying to find that right answer at that position after so many busts from the draft. Like Quentin Rollins and freaking Demarius Randall and Kevin King. Ugh, all Ted Thompson guys, by the way. Just to let you know. All Ted Thompson guys. And lastly, before I name maybe some small things, special teams talent. Just like the defense, the special teams for Green Bay has been garbage for years. The Packers were ranked 26th in special teams in 2019, which is hardly a surprise. The Packers needed 4 months to find a competent kick returner and still struggled mightily to cover kicks downfield. Remember after that first ass whooping we got from the 49ers? I said we were on pace to break the record for least return yards by a football team. Yeah, that's just how garbage special teams has been. And it's just been a complete Achilles heel for years that this damn front office has just repeatedly refused to address. Okay, guys like J.K. Scott and Mason Crosby, they're going to do their part as kickers. But the returns, coverages, and protections is pitiful. So they did very little to help the offense and the defense with their return game in 2019. All right, so re-signing a guy like Tyler Urban has to be a must. Special teams is pathetic, and Green Bay simply have to get better at flipping the field position and giving the defense more room to work with. Green Bay has been among the league's worst in special teams year after year after year after fucking year, and 2019 was no exception. It's just absolutely fucking pathetic, and they wonder again why we can't get back to the Super Bowl. You watch the Green Bay Packers, and you know they have been one of the worst football teams in special teams for so fucking long, and this front office has done absolutely nothing to address that. Nothing. I don't know how you can go into a season every goddamn year having one of the worst special teams, and you do absolutely nothing to change that. But yeah, there you go, man. Those are the biggest things I really feel like the Packers need to address this offseason. Okay, if there are any others you might think, go ahead and let me know in the comment section. And, there are some little things like maybe signing another guy running back, even start looking for the guy that might eventually replace Aaron Rodgers in the future. But those are some small things. Like for me, I wouldn't mind drafting a quarterback in the short run. But in the long run, if Rodgers is unable to play at a high enough tier to win in another year or two, then that's when you can go ahead and start searching for his eventual replacement. A lot of the off-season moves, they would need the cap space to pull off, honestly. And with Rodgers' contract eating up a lot of that cap space, I would love it if he would take a pay cut if he's really about trying to improve this football team and getting better. I mean, look at Tom Brady. How many times has he taken a pay cut? That's it, guys. Man, I know this was a long video. I'm sorry, but I wanted my final video on the season to help give y'all my complete thoughts and analysis on the entire season from start to finish. I wanted to talk again, but also about what I think they should do in the offseason. But just again, like I said, the 2019 Packers were an average 8-8 football team, and they just had the right schedule to win 13 games instead, and went on and snuck into the playoffs before being completely molested by a far superior football team. And Rodgers and Co. And it's like, if Rodgers and Co. ever want to play at that level, that same level, and get back to the big dance, then all I said should happen. If not, get ready for another long, frustrating season next year. And yeah, just get ready for the pain. But that's it. For me, man. I enjoyed making this. Leave a like if you watched and enjoyed the entire video. Comment and subscribe if you're new. This is Frank Nitty. I talk about the Green Bay Packers every season and have been talking about them for every season since 2012. I enjoy making these videos because I love cheering and talk about my favorite football team, whether it's bad or good, man. Appreciate the support from this season, and I'll see you guys next season. Go Packers.